Leah Marlene is back to making music as the spotlight fades from the normal native's rise to fame on American Idol.
I don't know, I kind of get to call the shots on everything, which is great and terrifying.
She has a new EP out tonight. Here's a sample on WGLT's news magazine, Sound Ideas. Good evening, I'm Lauren Warnicki. On today's show, there are new rules for federal student aid.
The whole intention was to offer more financial support to more students and a wider variety and diversity of students.
But the changes are causing headaches. And a new Super Bowl ad features family farms in central Illinois.
It highlights the fact that we are caretakers of this food system.
That's coming up after a Bloomington Normal News update. This is Sound Ideas on 89.1 and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network.
Support for WGLT comes from Bloomington Normal Audiology. Hear My Story continues with local patient Paul Brandt.
Since I got the hearing aids in August, it's really been quite a remarkable change and one that I value.
Paul's full story can be found at bnaudiology.com.
From the campus of Illinois State University in Normal, this is WGLT's news magazine, Sound Ideas. I'm Lauren Warnicki, in for John Norton. Leah Marlene is out with a new EP tonight, ahead of an East Coast tour this month with another Illinois-born artist, Todd Carey. It's called We're All Buying Into a Dream. 2 years after placing third on American Idol, it's pretty much business as usual for Leah Marlene. A few things have changed, though. The size of her fan base, for one. That helped her take the leap to becoming a full-time musician and setting up a home base in Nashville. And she fell in love, with many of her latest songs reflecting on her first serious relationship. But when the bubble of Idol opportunities burst, Leah had to re-find her way back to the path she was on before the show.
I feel like all the hype and all of the crazy, nonstop opportunity and traveling and all of that has died down. Now I'm back at a place where I'm kind of in the driver's seat. Not that I wasn't in the driver's seat, but there's just a lot coming to me.
Sure.
Now I'm in a place where I'm having to really make all of that happen again without a lot coming in. And I don't know, I kind of get to call the shots on everything, which is great and terrifying.
When you look back on the show, do you feel like, because I think some of these shows are highly produced, right? And they kind of put this narrative on you that you were like, oh, this quirky kid from Normal that grows into a respectable woman by the end of the show. Yeah. So how do you feel about that narrative, which they have to do? It's television, right? And how much do you feel like you really got to authentically be yourself?
When things were first airing, it was a little bit tricky because at the beginning of the show, there are so many contestants that they really have to pigeonhole everybody into their calling card of what they are. So I'm the quirky girl, and that's the person that had the really bad childhood, and that's the person that is I don't know. So everybody has their thing. Granted, I knew that I was going on a reality TV show where I didn't have any control over that. Mm-hmm. So I really do feel like I was able to be very true to myself. I was able to share my original music. I was able to do arrangements that felt very much like what my music would sound like as an artist if I put it out, even though I was doing cover songs.
Tell me something less. Tell me something.
I feel like what people got of me was really the artist that I was becoming as I was coming off of the show. And I think that was really great because, the people that found me on that show and have stuck with me because I'm still that same artist that was portrayed on that show.
Some of your choices might have cost you the title, right? Like the Bruce Springsteen pick and, maybe doing originals that people don't know the words to.
I never really cared too much to win, to be honest. My biggest goal was to be able to do the hometown visit.
Yeah.
And so that was crazy. But when you win American Idol, it's great, but it's also, you're always going to be an American Idol winner. Whereas like now, most people that I meet will have no idea that I was even on that show, and I don't have to be pigeonholed to being like an American Idol contestant for the rest of my life. Even though that was such an incredible experience and I'm so grateful for it, it doesn't like, it's just like a blip in my bio.
Time passes quicker every day. So much of it looks the same. Steady as an April rain.
You've got this new EP coming out, half of which is already released into the world. I'm kind of hearing two themes, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think there's the theme of like you're in love, you found a person, and and I know you have previously railed against writing lovey-dovey songs. So, and then another theme that kind of emerges for me is really about kind of embracing the small stuff and living in the moment.
All the stars collide, the two of us together. Yeah, we make something bigger.
All the songs were written the year after the show, where I was just figuring it out. I had just, before the show, I'd gone through like just mental hell for 2 years, and it took everything in me to come back to myself. And then this American Idol thing happened right when I was just like got so like healthy, and it was so beautiful and it was amazing. And then it's like you're, shot up to the moon. What on earth do you do with this trajectory and this excitement and opportunity, but also this pressure? And like, how do you maintain this like image of like, you just had like the highest like Hollywood production all around you, and now you're an independent artist and you have to like still look like you like know what you're doing.
Thank God you always knew. Thank God you followed through. If it were not for you,
I think like I really had to learn the lesson over and over and over again of like, okay, these things are really exciting. It's really easy to get so caught up in these opportunities, but like, what is even like, none of this actually matters. Like, it's great and wonderful, but like, none of that matters if I'm not happy, if the people that I love aren't feeling loved by me, if I'm not, investing in the little things in the day-to-day, none of the big things matter.
Architect is the outlier for me, and I want to hear about that, because for me it's kind of this refreshing injection of angst.
you say it's your game, it's your prerogative. Maybe if it's small enough in it all and be the optimist. You fed me a taste of what you had to give. I learned to savor your kind of danger. I love the thrill of it. I'm gonna burn it down. I'm gonna burn it down.
I'm glad you brought that up, because Architect is the outlier. It's the only song on the album that was written out of like pure like imagination. I'm very lucky. I've never been in like a really like toxic, manipulative relationship or situation with anybody, but that song is about like the most like toxic relationship or whatever. But that song was one of the first ones that I wrote where it felt like, oh my gosh, I'm finally cracking the code. Like this is the like angsty rock sound that I've wanted to make in like forever.
And if you want out, you gotta make now. I'll make you so proud. Show you I know.
The other song I wanted to really specifically touch on, in part because I just love it so much, is Dying Wish.
Around the time I did the BCPA show, a man that approached, that sounds so creepy, that reached out probably on Facebook or something. And essentially, his wife had just passed away from cancer, and she made it her dying wish to give me her instruments, 2 of her guitars. And she was a local, I believe, like music teacher in town. And I think she had dreams of really pursuing music in other ways.
I'm not worried where I'm going. I just wanna leave with knowing that when I go, I left something behind.
The song isn't necessarily about the story, but it's just about the idea of a dying wish in general and appreciating the little moments with the people you love while they're still here. And I think the coolest thing is that this song was able to come into fruition and actually out into the world, and that it was inspired by this woman, and that like her husband gets to like hold on to this song as a piece of that story. That's really, really meaningful to me.
You know what you mean to me.
We're All Buying Into a Dream by Leah Marlene is out tonight at 11 p.m. on streaming platforms. CDs will be available next month. To get yours, visit leahmarlene.com. You'll find a pre-save link there to the EP, plus links to all her social media and Patreon. Leah will play in Bloomington this summer as part of the Tailgate and Tall Boys Festival at the Interstate Center. Leah Marlene spoke to WGLT from her Nashville studio, where she was drinking from a Fort Jesse Cafe mug.
Support for arts and culture coverage on WGLT comes from PNC Financial Services. PNC is committed to supporting local arts and culture events in the communities they serve.
A musician who did sound design for film and TV now makes music inspired by the sounds of ordinary life. Tomorrow on Morning Edition from NPR News.
I'm WGLT Morning Edition host Ariel Jones. Wake up with Morning Edition tomorrow morning on 89.1 WGLT.
You're listening to Sound Ideas on WGLT. I'm Lauren Warnicki. Changes and delays to the college financial aid application known as FAFSA are causing headaches for students and families across the country. The changes are well intended. Lawmakers wanted the form to be shorter and easier, and to expand the number of low-income students who qualify for a federal Pell Grant. Those changes are now taking effect for the 2023-24 school year. At Bloomington High School, counselors themselves are adjusting to the changes so they can help students understand them. In this interview with WGLT student reporter Evie York, BHS Associate Principal Sally Kelly says the timing has been a challenge.
The intention is definitely to make the FAFSA easier and more beneficial to more students. But as far as challenges, I think the biggest one is obviously the timing of this change. I think in a nutshell, it would have been wonderful if this change could have been maybe put off till next year to make sure that everything was right with that. A perception, I think, of counselors and high school counselors, families, and universities thinking that it feels a little bit rushed. And to put that off has created some delays and difficulties in filling out the FAFSA, where it's usually has been available traditionally in October. It wasn't even available until New Year's Eve of this year. So that's been a challenge.
In previous years, what has been your experience with the FAFSA?
Since I've been in this role as administrator, the past 2 or 3 years have really been the most change, where everybody's doing it. So it does impact more students, and hopefully in a good way, because it's financial resources for all post-secondary. However, it also creates a responsibility and information, awareness, and education, and a lot more information about what it is and what it means and how to go through it with every single family. So obviously the volume of that can be challenging. But again, I think the experience in the past with it just being sort of the typical as it was process and having it available on October 1st, I mean, it's been smooth as far as perceptions and feeling in my experience, because there's no questions, there's no concern, people know what to expect.
What have your guidance counselors and you've done to educate yourself on these changes that have made to the FAFSA? And then how have these changes impacted your ability to help students?
They conducted an entire senior assembly. So we have about 300 seniors at BHS. So they gathered them all into the auditorium and basically just started with the FAFSA is for everyone, regardless of your plans, post-secondary plans with college, you want to make sure that you fill out the FAFSA because you never know what resources you may have available to you. So, and that was really obviously well attended because it was a part of our structured school day, but feedback from the counselors and the students is that they were attentive. They asked good questions as far as, okay, so what do I need and how soon do I have to do this? What information do I have to, have for my parents in order to fill out correctly and things like that. So it was really great to have that because the message was basically, don't panic. There's changes. Everyone's dealing with these. There's still time. Even now, even as we hit February, there is still time for everyone to fill out the FAFSA and get financial aid opportunities.
What advice do you give students when they're choosing colleges based on financial aid packages?
Here's my advice to students everywhere, but specifically at BHS. I'm going to praise our counseling team again. They're very knowledgeable about the most valuable scholarship opportunities that are out there, whether that be locally or what questions they need to ask to narrow down with a particular student's family situation of what their best path would be. So as far as colleges, I would say, we always want our students to, aim for the moon and go for their passions and go to whatever colleges they aspire to. But as far as concrete advice right now, in order to reach that goal, be in contact as much as possible with our counselors so that they can ask the questions. And they also have the counselors to advocate and do the reaching that for opportunities that our students may not know even exist.
How do you think the new FAFSA is going to play a part in giving the most students at your school the possibility to go to college?
The rockiness that it was rolled out, I think that overall, this is what we want to do. We want to have a situation with FAFSA where, it's an opportunity for more students, especially those of traditionally underserved populations, multilingual learners, et cetera, to really get as much access financially as they can, which is what these changes had in mind to begin with. That the whole intention was to offer more financial support to more students and a wider variety and diversity of students, which is wonderful.
That's Bloomington High School Associate Principal Sally Kelly speaking with WGLT student reporter Evie York. NPR has done a lot of reporting on financial aid and FAFSA. The U.S. Department of Education now says it won't be spending students' FAFSA data to schools until the first half of March. That puts schools in a bind as colleges can't determine what financial aid students should get until they receive the government's FAFSA data. Finally today on Sound Ideas, when you're watching the Super Bowl this weekend, you'll see several Central Illinois farmers featured in a new commercial. A group called Illinois Farm Families bought a 30-second ad that will air regionally during the game. It's part of the group's 96% campaign. The message is to show that 96% of Illinois farms are family-owned. Chad Lehman is a third-generation corn, soybean, and pig farmer just east of Eureka in Woodford County. He is one of several families featured. Lehman tells WGLT agriculture correspondent Tim Alexander much of the public assumes that most farms in the area are run by large corporations.
What's difficult for the public to differentiate is the fact that these farms are very large. Many of the farms across this state are very large, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're not family owned. It just means that for the next generation to come back to the farm, these businesses have had to reach a scale and a size that would sustain future growth. And so even though these farms are large and they encompass a lot of lands, oftentimes animals and dollars, they still can go directly back to oftentimes the family that started that farm.
I actually just came across a really interesting tidbit today. I think it was published by Illinois Corn that says the average farm size in Illinois is 358 acres. That kind of flies in the face of the wide-held misconception that Illinois is primarily made up of large mega farms.
You have all sizes of farms, from a couple hundred acres to thousands of acres. And depending upon where you're located within the state of Illinois, also dictates somewhat how large of an acreage you need to encompass. You have some areas that are largely pasture and maybe not as many crops grown, and then you have extremely fertile soils like we have right here in Woodford and Tazewell and McLean counties that are highly productive farmland, what we would call the breadbasket of the world.
Now, why do you think that your family was chosen for this commercial, Chad?
I think part of it was the fact that I was a year ago the incoming president of Illinois Pork, and so there's a bit of publicity around that. Obviously, as I did a number of interviews and hosted some politicians and media types out here on the farm, and they became familiar with our operation. We have always taken initiative to host politicians here when we can. It seems like if we can share with them, especially some of the urban legislators, if we can share with them really how we're raising the food that's feeding people across this state, it really helps them better understand why some of the legislation that they might propose could be detrimental to our businesses. So when we can get them in the hog barns or out on the fields or in a tractor, it helps to make that connection between the farm and eventually the fork.
Have you and your family been able to view the entire finished commercial for this year, Chad?
I did see it. Yeah, they sent it to me late last week, and just a 30-second commercial during the Super Bowl. I don't know yet when it's going to air, but they did a great job with it. They got through a lot of the families, a lot of different areas of the state with it, and communicated a really good message, I feel like.
What do you think that message is? What message do you want consumers to take away from this commercial and your participation in it, Chad?
To me, it boils down to trust. I think that the commercial, to me, implores consumers to trust the farmers that are raising their food, and it highlights the fact that this is the same food that we're feeding to our families. It highlights the fact that we are caretakers of this food system, and that the consumer can trust us for providing a healthy, nutrient product at their grocery stores.
That was Chad Lehman, a third-generation farmer from Eureka. He spoke with WGLT ag correspondent Tim Alexander. The ad is scheduled to run across much of Illinois and parts of Indiana and Missouri. Thanks for choosing WGLT's Sound Ideas, made possible in part by Bloomington Normal Audiology. I'm Lauren Warnicki. Story help today also came from student reporter Evie York and WGLT ag correspondent Tim Alexander. Ryan Toohey edits the show. This is 89.1 WGLT and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network.